And at guard 6'4" from Kentucky, welcome to DC, number 2, John Wall. What a shot! John Wall, some nasty stuff.
Who's the best point guard in the NBA?
Me.
He has elevated himself to star status, and he is approaching superstar status. What a disgrace that has taken place in the nation's capital.
John Wall, already out for the rest of this season because of his injured heel, now needs surgery for a ruptured Achilles after slipping in his home, according to the team.
I got John Wall's contract right here.
So, as we look at what the Wizards owe Wall for the next 4 years.
Lord almighty. Well, he's going to be making 38 chilling at the crib next year.
Like, I go from the second best player in the East, top 10, top 15 player in the league, then let everything go, you know what I mean, to like basically rock bottom.
The nation's capital, when it comes to the sport of basketball, have absolutely, positively nothing to look forward to. This situation is an abomination.
Here's some basketball trivia. Can you guess the one and only NBA team that hasn't won 50 games in a season since 1980? Well, if you read the title of the video, then you probably guessed that it was the Washington Wizards. Which, ding ding ding, you'd be right. So that begs a follow-up question. In which season did the Wizards come the closest to winning 50? The 2016-17 season, a year in which Wizards fans praise as one of the greatest seasons in their franchise's history. It was the most successful year out of a nearly decade-long era in DC, led by John Wall and his running mate Bradley Beal. Now in 2025, Wall's career is over, while Beal has faded into NBA irrelevancy. The Wizards lost everything in the blink of an eye. They're one of the worst teams in the league and have been stuck in basketball purgatory for what feels like forever. No Wizards team in the 21st century was greater than the Wall-Beal ones. So what made them so special? And how did they fall off a cliff so quickly? The story of the Wizards' downfall is one of freak injuries, horrible mismanagement, and heartbreaking playoff exits. The Wizards kicked off this era in 2010 with their drafting of John Wall with the #1 pick. Their first real franchise cornerstone in decades. He famously hit the Dougie in his Wizards home debut, later scoring 29 points, 13 rebounds, and having 9 steals in this game as well. As the season progressed, Wall proved that the Wizards made the right choice with the top pick. What stood out with his game was his explosiveness and crafty finishing around the rim. He was a walking highlight reel, finishing second in the Rookie of the Year race only behind Blake Griffin. Wall was the one glimmer of hope on this otherwise garbage Wizards roster that featured players like Nick Young, missed wide open layup, a washed Gilbert Arenas, guns, and JaVale McGee, tried to kill someone with his free throw line dunk. Yes, this was the franchise John Wall was tasked with turning around. Good luck, brother. They won 23 games in his rookie year, being rewarded with the 6th pick. Now it's time to get Wall co-star. Alright, Wizards, what do you got?
Alright, Ben Simmons, what do you got?
Yeah, they drafted one of the biggest busts of the decade, Jan Vesely. His career literally lasted 3 seasons. His most famous NBA moment was him kissing his girlfriend on draft night. The European was touted as a tall big man that could run the floor with Wall, but his offense was horrible. He couldn't shoot, especially from the free throw line, where he would literally get his teammates to shoot them for him. Might I remind you that this was the same draft with Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, and Kemba Walker? In a world where John Wall and Bradley Beal weren't enough to get Washington over the hump, missing on a good contributor here in 2011 was a massive blunder in retrospect. The Wizards paid for it dearly, especially in the following 2011-12 season, where they opened up the year 2-15, finishing second to last in the Eastern Conference by year's end with just 20 wins. This landed them the 3rd pick in the draft, where they selected the side character of our story, the co-star to John Wall, Bradley Beal. Wall was a do-it-all two-way point guard, while Beal was a sharpshooting scorer. The 2012-13 season saw both these two play together for the first time. Wall missed the first half of the season due to a knee injury, but when he returned in January, he finished the season strong, scoring 18 a game with 8 assists. On the flip side, Beal scored 13 a game and shot 38% from deep, finishing third in the Rookie of the Year race and showing flashes as a gifted scorer. The pieces were starting to come together for Washington. Then, they were gifted the third pick in the 2013 draft, a golden opportunity at bringing in that third star. Watch out, League! A super team is being formed in DC. You picked Wilt Chamberlain? Yeah, Otto Porter, the Wilt lookalike, was chosen here at number 3. Did he have a nice career? For sure. He helped the Warriors win a ring in 2021 as a role player. Was he worth the third pick and all the money Washington would end up giving him? Hell no. The problem with Porter Jr. was how the Wizards mishandled him. More on that later. For now, the 2013-14 season marked a turning point for Washington's franchise. The Wizards had their first winning season since 2008. This was in large part thanks to Wall's leap into an all-star, his first appearance at just 23 years of age. What was amazing about John Wall's game was that unlike so many other guards, he wasn't one-dimensional. He did more than just score. He could playmake like a demon. He averaged 9 assists per game this year. Not to mention he was excellent defensively, often swatting opposing guards' layups into the stands. One defensive play that stands out to me was his block on Steph Curry, where Wall completely dwarfed him and erased his shot.
Did I say he was fast?
Wall was becoming one of the league's most popular players. Bradley Beal was coming along nicely as well. The promising shooting guard proved to be a great fit alongside Wall. Despite being just 20 at the time, Beal had a clutch gene, hitting a plethora of game winners that cemented himself as an elite closer. In just 2 seasons, the Wizards had gone from second to last in the East to winning 44 games, snatching the 5th seed. In round 1, the Wizards annihilated the Derrick Rose-less Chicago Bulls in 5, marking their 3rd playoff series win in 35 years. The real star of this series was Nene, the then 31-year-old center, who averaged 18 and 8, out-rebounding and destroying Chicago in the post. Having other players step up for Washington outside of Beal and Wall was huge, and made all the difference in this surprisingly easy series victory. Up next in round 2, the number 1 seeded Indiana Pacers with Paul George. In Game 1, the Wizards stormed into Indy and snatched a victory, thanks to Beal's 25 points. The youngster had stepped up in place of the struggling Wall, who scored just 14, hitting a series of incredible shots in the 4th that helped his squad pull away.
He buries it. Bradley Beal from long range.
Wizards fans' hype had just reached all-time highs. They just took Game 1 against the top dog in the East, beating them comfortably at that. Now let's watch how they blew it. In Game 2, they had a real shot at winning, but their 3-ball went cold, and they lost by just 4 points. Wall was ineffective once again. He scored 6 points on 2 of 13 shooting. In Game 3 at home, where you'd think Washington would be on their A-game, they laid an egg, scoring just 63 points in 4 quarters of play. Yes, 63.
Is that your best?
Wall scored 15, Beal shot 6 of 19, and Nene shot 3 of 14. Why is Nene shooting the ball 14 times? In Game 4, the Wizards were up by as much as 19, but they blew the game. Paul George iced them for 39, and Trevor Ariza got CTE and threw away the game. The Wizards were now down 3-1.
You blew it!
Washington lost in 6. Their inexperience here stuck out like a sore thumb. In a world where everyone talks about the 2017 playoffs against Boston as the one Washington blew, I think of 2014. Where the Wizards actually had several opportunities to put down the flailing Pacers. Regardless, this year was a success for DC. They won their first playoff series in nearly a decade. As a result, the Wizards entered the 2014-15 season with lofty expectations. The duo of Wall and Beal had been established. The supporting cast of Nene, Marcin Gortat, the young rising Otto Porter, plus free agent acquisition Paul Pierce made Washington a feared contender in the Eastern Conference. Initially, they lived up to the hype, opening the year guns a-blazing with a 19-6 record, jumping to the 2nd seed in the East. However, this fiery start was followed by pure mid. The Wizards went just 27-30 to close the season with a puny 46-36 record, in large part due to injuries and the Wizards shooting falling off a cliff. Entering the 2015 playoffs, most spectators projected them as a round 1 out due to this poor stretch to end the year. But luckily for the Wizards, they ran into the doormat of the NBA at the time, the Toronto Raptors, who they shockingly swept. Yeah, a round 1 sweep for DC. In Game 1, they held Toronto to just 4 overtime points, closing them out with Paul Pierce leading the way. In Game 2, they won in blowout fashion thanks to Beal's 28. In Game 3, they stuck the knife in, trampling the Raptors in crunch time, with Paul Pierce again showing up late with a dagger triple. Pierce, the 37-year-old, had emerged as an incredible clutch leader for the team. The Wizards blew out Toronto in Game 4 to seal the deal. They hadn't just advanced, they eliminated Toronto in dominant fashion. A stunning series victory that showcased the incredible potential this Wizards team had when the squad was firing on all cylinders. Awaiting them in the second round would be the 60-win Atlanta Hawks with 4 All-Stars. A formidable challenge on the surface, but in Game 1, the Wizards train kept humming. They executed perfectly down the stretch, with Otto Porter hitting 2 clutch shots that helped Washington grab a 6-point W. Wizards fans were on cloud 9. It seemed as though their squad was an unstoppable machine that was gonna bulldoze their way through the East. Nothing could stop them now. Damn it! In Game 1, John Wall suffered a left hand fracture, an injury that sidelined him through Games 2, 3, and 4, a devastating blow to Washington's playoff hopes. Despite this horrible stroke of bad luck, Washington fought hard, even stealing Game 3 at home because the truth stepped up once again. Paul Pierce was the hero this Wizards team desperately needed. This shot kept Washington's conference finals hopes alive. They were now up 2-1. Finish the job in Game 4, DC. Well, they couldn't. The Wizards fell just short, squandering a golden opportunity at taking a 3-1 lead. Now let's watch how they blow it again. In Game 5, they lost a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter, going down by 2 in the final seconds after a crunch time turnover. But our new main character, Paul Pierce, would come to the rescue. The truth somehow delivered again, knocking down a clutch corner 3-ball to put Washington in front with just 8 seconds left. This was it, Washington. Now was your time to get a defensive stop and achieve the upset of the century. This didn't happen though, because on the final play, Al Horford flew in for an offensive rebound and threw in a layup that put ATL back in front. The game was over. The Hawks had survived, and Washington had snatched defeat from the jaws of victory once more. They had one final chance to salvage their season in Game 6. After climbing back in the fourth, the Hawks were up by 3 with just a few seconds left. The Wizards, in an act of desperation, threw it to the truth, begging him to bail them out one last time. It appeared as if Pierce had done it again, but after further review, it was revealed that the clock had hit zeros with the ball still in his hands. The shot did not count. The game was over. The Wizards had been eliminated, a stunning end to their season. For the second year in a row, they had fumbled an opportunity at making the Eastern Conference Finals. But fans of the team remained more hopeful than ever that the young squad had gotten the experience necessary to come back and put the East on notice. All the momentum was building for what was expected to be a dominant 2015-16 season. Before we find out what happens next though, I need to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Delete Me. Did you know that when you sign up for a website, data brokers make boatloads of money selling your private info to other organizations? This puts you at an increased risk of identity theft, lost job or relationship opportunities, and unwanted marketing or spam. There's a solution though, and I personally recommend Delete Me, a site that removes all of your unwanted public information from search engines and data broker sites, protecting your privacy and keeping you away from scams. After putting in my info, they reviewed 477 listings and removed 21 that exposed any of my private info, removing important things like my address off the web. They'll continue to monitor my info regularly, removing any other funky stuff that may pop up. They can do the same for you too. You'll get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/DylanHoops and use promo code DylanHoops at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/DylanHoops. Now where were we? Instead of breaking through into NBA glory, Washington missed the playoffs entirely. The Wizards' defense took a major step back this year. They went from top 10 in defensive rating to 24th. Longtime head coach Randy Whitman got the boot as a result once the year ended. His offensive system didn't work, and his team's defense was garbage. Former OKC Thunder coach Scott Brooks was signed as his replacement. There were no moves made in the summer of 2015. All they did was let Paul Pierce walk. The Wizards roster was nearly identical to a year prior. Why? They wanted the flexibility to pursue Kevin Durant in the summer of 2016. That's right, KD, the dominant superstar born in the nation's capital, was on the Wizards' radar. They wanted him to complete their big three. Washington may have missed the postseason, but it's fine. The best player in the world was going to come here and save the day. He decided to commit a crime against humanity instead. With KD to Golden State, the Wizards were left with a boatload of money and no one to give it to. In an act of pure panic, they proceeded to undergo one of the worst off seasons in NBA history. They handed out a storm of horrible contracts. 4 years $64 million to Ian Mahinmi, 4 years $26 million to Andrew Nicholson, and 3 years $15 million to Jason Smith. Who the hell is Jason Smith? $105 million to three nobodies. The 2016 offseason went down as a catastrophic failure for Washington. It hampered all of their flexibility for future moves and locked them in salary cap hell. You'd think that another disappointing year would follow these terrible moves, but no. The Wizards' 2016-17 season was actually their greatest season in the last 4 decades. Yes, this is the only year since 1980 in which Washington won more than 47 games in a season. What's crazy is that to open the year, they struggled. They started just 1-5 and were even 19-19 at one point. Following January and into February, though, they went on a tear, winning 15 of 17. John Wall exploded into an All-NBA MVP candidate, dominating on both ends of the ball. This year was easily the best of his career. The most noteworthy regular season game for the Wizards to me came when the team really started to roll in January. Against the Boston Celtics, the Wizards showed up before the game in all black, calling it a funeral game. The two teams had been getting into heated scuffles in their previous matchups. The Wizards backed up this trash talk, destroying the Celtics as Beal dropped 31 and Wall dropped 27. A chippy, intense victory that showcased the sky-high confidence of Washington. They won 49 games, landing the 4th seed in the East. They continued this strong momentum into the playoffs, knocking out the Hawks in 6, in a series where Wall averaged 30 points per game. Next up in round 2 was, of course, their hated rival, the Boston Celtics. It's a series which would go down as one of the most memorable in Wizards history thanks to its non-stop trash-talking, fights, and crazy finishes. The Isaiah Thomas vs. John Wall point guard battle was something special. In Game 2, Wall scored 40, while IT dropped 53 in a Celtics overtime win. In Game 4, the duo of Beal and Wall combined for 56 points to tie the series at 2, but none of these games come close to the iconic Game 6. The Wizards entered down 3-2. Before the game, the Celtics returned the favor and showed up in all black. They wanted to kill the Wizards season. Late in the game, the C's were backing the Wizards off a cliff, as Al Horford banked in a midi to put the Celtics up by 2 with 7 seconds left. But John Wall, the All-NBA best player on the team, took matters into his own hands instead of panicking, rising up and burying a 3 to give Washington the lead.
He gets Bradley for 3. John Wall! What a shot! You talk about a pressure shot. That was it.
Wall had just saved his team's season, nailing an unbelievably clutch, ballsy shot over an elite perimeter defender in Avery Bradley. Afterwards, Wall sent a message to the hated Celtics.
I ain't going home. Don't come to my city wearing all black talking about it's a funeral. We worked too hard for this. And all we asked for is the game 7, 50-50. And that's all we asked for. We do it for these unbelievable fans, man. Without these guys, we wouldn't have won this game.
This moment right here was not only the peak of the Wall era in DC, but it was quite literally the last good moment this franchise would experience for years. Basketball hell awaited the Washington Wizards. In Game 7, they were handily defeated because Celtics role player Kelly Olynyk scored 26 points. While Beal scored 38, Wall was nowhere to be found, scoring just 18 on 23 shots, going 0 of 11 in the last 19 minutes of the game. Not too long after experiencing a high of epic proportions, their season was suddenly over, in an incredibly anticlimactic fashion. Things would only get worse from here on out. If you thought the summer of 2016 was bad for Washington's cap situation, then you gotta get a load of 2017's offseason, in which the Wizards literally buried themselves alive as a franchise. Ernie Grunfeld, Washington's executive since 2003, gave out two of the worst contracts of the 2010s within the span of 2 weeks. First, they matched the Brooklyn Nets offer of 4 years, $106 million to Otto Porter, their 23-year-old wing who was coming off an impressive season. This was a catastrophic error. Porter failed to improve and regressed into an overpaid role player that was taking up 21% of Washington's cap sheet. Spoiler alert, this was only the calm before the storm. Because next up, Washington gave a 4-year, $170 million supermax deal to John Wall, a contract that would take about a year and a half to become the worst deal in the NBA, because John Wall's lower body would eventually turn into dust. These two deals made an already bad salary situation unbearable. The Wizards could no longer afford any extra supporting pieces around their duo. So, entering the 2017-18 season, Washington's roster was nearly identical as the year prior. Many rightfully felt then that they'd improve. The Wizards believed this too. They confidently spouted to the public that LeBron and the Cavs had purposefully avoided playing them in the playoffs by not getting the first seed. A bold claim, especially because the Cavs had wiped the floor with the Celtics in 5 in the conference finals, the same team Washington had lost to in 7. The Wizards were hungry to push the king off his throne. Instead of dethroning LeBron though, they took a step back, falling from 49 wins in the 4th seed in 16-17 to 43 wins in the 8th seed in 17-18. This was due to John Wall missing half the season thanks to a knee injury. In his time on the bench, beef also began brewing between him and his teammates, specifically longtime Wizards center Marcin Gortat. After the Wizards went on a small winning streak with Wall on the sidelines, Gortat tweeted about how it was a great team victory. Team being in quotes. The implication being that Washington played better without Wall's ball-dominant style. Wall, upon getting wind of this, was shocked. He quickly fired back at Gortat.
I know what I do and what I bring to a team. I know I'm a team player. I average almost 10 assists a game. I'm very prideful in finding my teammates and getting these guys these shots. And it was more just shocking to hear from him and understanding that he gets the most assists from me and the most spoon-fed baskets ever.
This tension continued as the season went on until Gortat was traded in the summer of 2018. In other news, Bradley Beal had broken out without Wall on the floor. He earned his first All-Star appearance as a pro, becoming one of the most lethal scorers in the game. In the playoffs with Wall back, the Wizards had opportunities at beating the first-seeded Raptors, but ultimately failed to capitalize after evening the series at 2, losing in 6. Washington may have declined from one year to the next, but given the fact that Wall had missed half the season, and taking into account Beal's leap into an All-Star, those same contending expectations for Washington remained. Once LeBron bolted to LA in the offseason, a power vacuum was created in the East. Who would take the crown? Many spectators believed the Wizards were in a bad bet, but little did they know, all of the problems that had slowly been boiling behind closed doors for the Wizards were about to erupt, in one of the most agonizing seasons in franchise history. 2018-19, the season where the John Wall era collapsed. To open the year, the Wizards started 2-9, an unthinkably bad start that came with all of their stars healthy. It was November, and Washington's season was already on the brink of being over. Their big free agent splash to replace Gortat and Dwight Howard failed miserably. He played just 9 games for the team before sitting out for the remainder of the season due to an injured ass. In December, the Wizards traded Kelly Oubre, their young rising wing, for a 33-year-old washed role player Trevor Ariza, who literally did nothing in his time with the team. Oubre later blossomed in Phoenix. Now, let's turn our focus to John Wall, who, amidst this chaos, was playing like his usual all-star self, until he wasn't. In late December 2018, Wall was ruled out for the remainder of the season to undergo surgery on his left heel due to bone spurs, an injury that in all likelihood would have little impact on his career. But a month later, a stunning report came out that while in the shower, Wall had slipped and tore his Achilles, an unfathomable stroke of bad luck that would be the death blow for his NBA career. Just like that, Wall had gone from the peak of his career in May 2017 to rock bottom in January 2019. It also sent Wall's mental health spiraling. This, along with the deaths of his mother and grandmother, as well as the pandemic that would hit a year later, pushed him towards suicidal thoughts. Thankfully, Wall was able to survive through seeking therapy and talking to friends and family. He has since become a mental health advocate.
Looking at all that, and I'm like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything in life.
Such a horrible string of injuries hitting him in this short period of time sent the Wizards franchise from a playoff contender to the bottom team in the East. This all happened while Wall's supermax deal had yet to even trigger, meaning that starting the 2019-20 season, the man who could not play a single game for his team took up 35% of their entire salary cap. A nightmare scenario. This marks the point in the video where we shift our focus from Wall over to Beal, as he was now the best player on the team. Understandably, trade rumors surrounded him since it was clear Washington was done with contending. But in an incredible showing of pure stupidity, the Wizards never traded him until it was too late. They should have traded him here in 2019, so they could enter a rebuild with some assets and possible new young talent. Keeping him ensured that they were just good enough to avoid getting a top lottery pick, while still missing the playoffs. Perpetual mediocrity. Usually when writing videos about a team's downfall, I have empathy, because in many cases, a team's decline is the result of misfortune outside of their control. For the Wizards, their decline was entirely self-inflicted. Under Tommy Shepard, who had replaced the incompetent Ernie Grunfeld in April 2019, the Wizards entered a brutally mediocre 4-year timeline that they could have exited whenever they wanted to by trading Beal. But for some reason, they chose not to, holding on to him for dear life like he was the modern-day Michael Jordan. Beal was who he was, a talented all-star. He was not a winning player, or the type of leader who could guide an undermanned roster to the postseason. It seems like everyone in the world except for the Wizards front office realized this. Perhaps because Washington had a fear that once they did trade him, fans would stop watching. But this doesn't even make sense because no one was watching them anyway once Wall went down. So what happened in between 2019 and 2023? Well, as for drafting, they picked up Rui Hachimura in 2019, Denny Avdia in 2020, Corey Kispert in 2021, Johnny Davis in 2022, and Bilal Coulibaly in 2023. The best player of the bunch is Avdia, who is now in Portland. The rest are role players at best, and that's putting it nicely. Johnny Davis is one of the worst players in the league, so they took an L on most of these picks. No one notable came their way in free agency during this time either, because the Wizards were broke AF. Surprisingly, one of their few good moves was how they maneuvered out of the Wall contract. A 30-year-old supermax player coming off an Achilles injury was not a hot commodity, yet for one first-round pick, Washington moved off of him for Russell Westbrook in December 2020. Westbrook played a season for Washington, even helping them clinch the playoffs in 2021, before he was moved to LA for a few assets. Wall, who had spent 10 years in DC, found out about the trade via DM from Westbrook. Classy stuff. Ironically enough, this would come back to bite the Wizards in their contract negotiations with Bradley Beal 2 years later. In the summer of 2022, Washington was coming off yet another poor 35-win season with Beal as the top dog. For some odd reason, probably related to masochism, the Wizards wanted him to stay, offering him a max contract, rewarding his efforts of achieving nothing handsomely. This wasn't just any max though. It was a max with a no-trade clause that Beal demanded and a 15% trade kicker. Beal wanted the no-trade clause because of how the Wizards did Wall dirty in 2020. It ensured that when the Wizards did trade him, Beal would hold all the cards on where he wanted to go, likely sapping his value. It was a contract that was mocked by the NBA world literally the second it was signed. It's no surprise that just a year after signing it, Beal requested a trade, being sent to Phoenix after he rejected every other team with a no-trade clause. He got his money, so he wanted to get the hell out. The Wizards received a handful of firsts in return, finally embarking on the rebuild, 4.5 years after Wall suffered that career-ending Achilles injury. Speaking of Wall, after being traded, he'd spend 2 seasons in Houston, one of which he sat out voluntarily before he was bought out. He played his final season in 2022-23 with the LA Clippers. His last moment of relevance came ironically enough in Washington, where Wall had a highlight play against his former team that sent the crowd into a frenzy.
Wall breaks down his defender mid-range. is good. He glances at the crowd, pounds his chest, and they respond as if he's wearing a Wizards uniform.
"This is still my city," he yelled to fans. And he was right. Wall will forever be a Wizards icon. Even if it ended unceremoniously, the fans still remember his many years of excellence. It wasn't his fault the team never broke through into real contention. That's the fault of the front office, who never put together a good supporting cast around their duo. They always lacked the flexibility because they tied their own hands behind their back with the numerous poor contracts they handed out. The John Wall era was the last time the Wizards franchise had real success. Even if they never made a conference finals, Wall gave them something to cheer about. He sold out arenas with his electrifying play. He guided his squad through countless postseason battles against fierce Eastern Conference foes. He put Wizards basketball back on the map. So for that, he'll always be a legend in DC. Enjoy your retirement, John.